Rebecca Davis, a weird, scary, and interesting. And I have to record this again because we're having technical issues. So, our topic today will take us back in time. And the topic is scary things from the Victorian era. And as you can tell, I'm dressed in Victorian fashion. I tried to replicate, like I did last week for Mothers from the 50s TV. So we're going from the 50s to 1837 to 1901. During my 15th time, no, let's go back. My 12th time cousin, Queen Victoria's reign. Sorry, I don't know why I forgot the connection there. I guess I'm having quite a day. Okay, let's go into our little time machines and go back to the Victorian era, where my 12th time cousin, Queen Victoria, reigned. It'd be the time of the British Empire. Okay. The Victorian era spans the 63 years of my 12th time cousin, Queen Victoria's reign over the United Kingdom. And, excuse me, if you're wondering why the camera's going this way, the table it's on is kind of wobbly. Okay. Get back to this. Okay, the United Kingdom and the British Empire from from 1837 to until her death on July 22nd, 1901. It was a great wealth for Britain as it expanded its empire across the globe. During this era, some scary things came out of the Victorian era. So we are going to get scared and learn all about 14 scary things from the Victorian era. First, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee, and then we'll find out what scary things from the Victorian era. Well, hopefully this time I don't have to record again. I'm just moving the table up closer so it'll be easier for me to read off my phone, making it look like a teleprompter. Okay, let's get into it and see what scary things from the Victorian era. And our first scary thing is death photography. Who wouldn't want that? To be getting a little snapshot of it. Let's see why. Death photography is a popular practice in the Victorian era. Death photography, or postmortem photography, was a practice that endured as a way to, hopefully I get this word right, commemorate loved ones who had passed away. So like somebody's grandpa, a whole stock of their family died. Before throwing them in the ground, they pose them up for a snapshot. Everybody say cheese. Oh wait, you can't. Often served as a meaning of coping with the high death rates at the time, and easing grief. I don't know, that might be a little bit more easier than the next thing on this list that you used to do. Be a lot more better. I could go with the death photography, maybe, but do that nowadays. Somebody might find that it look weird. Okay, it was seen as a way to capture a last image of the deceased, often in peaceful or sleeping position, and to keep their memory alive. Nowadays, the last image of somebody is the last image you took with them the last time you ever seen them. It's like, okay, the last image of Grandma Grace was at my wedding. And it's like, that'll be the only image you ever see of her. But in the Victorian era, the last image of Grandma Grace would be after Grandma Grace dies, and you're plopping her on the couch with her dead husband of 20 years, Grandpa Hector. And their two stillborn children they had years ago. Their son that just died last week. So it was a different time. When you go through different eras, there's different popular things, and there was the popular trend that went on in the Victorian era was death photography. I guess if I was in the Victorian era, I could probably go for doing the death photography than the whole other thing I'm going to mention later on this episode. It'd be less creepy. Today it'd be a little bit weird. Somebody would get a look at you strange. You think about death photography, technically nowadays, is technically the photo that you get taken when you're on from a crime scene. I guess. Yeah. Well, as I say, every era has different trends. And that was the death photography was the Victorian era's trend. It's not the only trend they had back then. And thank God some of these trends from the Victorian era has died. Okay. Let's move on from a death photography to number 2. And number 2 is a Victorian serial killer named Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer from the Victorian era who was active around the impoverished Whitechapel district of London in 1888. In both case files, hopefully I get this word right, Pomerish journalistic accounts, the killer was also called the Whitechapel murderer and the leather apron, not to mistake in Leatherface. Totally different guy. Totally different era. I only heard of Jack the Ripper. I never heard him being called the leather apron. I think I might have heard of the Whitechapel murder. And being called the Whitechapel murder. Okay, Jack the Ripper's victim account was 5 women. Counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can tell, I'm wearing black nail polish in honor of the Victorian era. More mixed with late and early Victorian. Okay, let's get back to Jack. Jack's victim count was only 5 women. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jack the Ripper's victims were, these are the names of these ladies that he ended their lives. His first victim was Mary Ann Nichols from August 31st, 1888. Second was Annie Chapman, found on September 8th, 1888. Third was Elizabeth Stride, found on September 30th, 1888. Also on the same day, Elizabeth was murdered. Catherine Eddowes was murdered that same day of September 30th, 1888. Now, since Catherine was his fourth, so before we go on to the last one, the little, if you're wondering why and you never heard of Jack the Ripper's case, you're wondering why did he destroy 2 women's lives in one night. I heard that, I think I'm right, when he was killing Elizabeth Stride, he got distracted. No, he got caught. And it was like a rush job on Elizabeth. So that's why he ended up just hurriedly killing Elizabeth. So, yeah, since he hurriedly killed Elizabeth, he ran out and eventually he met up with Catherine Eddowes, and he killed Catherine Eddowes. Okay. I thought to explain if any of my viewers didn't know about this case. And I will, in another time, explain more about this case when I do when he's mentioned has his own little separate video of when I do true crime. But he'll be in the True Crime Cold Case edition. Because he is a cold case. No one knows who he is. So, Jack the Ripper's fifth and last victim was Mary Jane Kelly. Found on November 9th, 1888. All of Jack the Ripper's victims were prostitutes. And if you're wondering why are these women back then selling their money, they were part of the lower class, and they had to, back in the Victorian era, it was really impoverished to act there. I'm not saying today is different, but the lower class back then didn't have their fair shake. They really didn't have their fair shake. It was really a different time that women had to just go and sell themselves to get a couple of bucks. And so, that's why all 5 of those women ended up having, whatever reason why it forced them to be in that position of deciding of eating or selling their body to somebody to get a couple bucks to get a loaf of bread. Jack must have really didn't had some issue with prostitutes, so that I guess we'll find out in another video in the cold case edition. My true crime episodes. Okay, get this. Jack the Ripper was never found. Even today, is still questionable who Jack the Ripper is. There was, years ago, I think a couple of years ago, was it? Some guy came out and said that he might have found out who Jack the Ripper is. And it was some convict from the Victorian era, he claimed, that was in prison for, the exact same crime. This guy, I guess, must have been killing prostitutes like Jack the Ripper was. But then, you think, I forget what's the guy's name? the suspect's name, the guy's name. But I'll have to maybe look it up for the cold case edition with Jack the Ripper. And he's not the only suspect that could be who Jack the Ripper is. The guy, not the guy that figured it could be this Victorian convict that was in jail for the exact same thing. H.H. Holmes could be Jack the Ripper. Except H.H. Holmes was killing different... Okay, H.H. Holmes, for anybody who doesn't know who H.H. Holmes is. H.H. Holmes lived around the exact same time in the Victorian era, but in the United States of America. Yeah, the Canada's neighbor to the south. He was the guy, H.H. Holmes is the guy, as they say, is U.S.'s first serial killer. And he had what was called a murder hotel. Like, he'd rig it up where it was kind of like his own private torture dungeon. And plus, H.H. Holmes is also another one I'm looking at to do a true crime on. I don't think he was ever found either, was he? If he wasn't, he could be on the cold case edition too. Anyways, what I'll tell you after it takes a sip here. Okay. Why he could be a suspect of to be Jack the Ripper is because there is a big discrepancy of time between when one started killing. I think it was when H.H. Holmes or Jack the Ripper started killing, or the other vice versa. And the other one's killings ended. So it could have been so easy, maybe, that H.H. Holmes, I think I'm right, when H.H. Holmes' killing stopped, when Jack the Ripper's killing stopped, it could have been, he could have, I think one of the other. I think it was H.H. Holmes when his killing stopped, that he went over to England, and he could have slipped over to England and started terrorizing Whitechapel, and they didn't know who this guy is. So, that could have been. But I never heard of H.H. Holmes doing whacking prostitutes. I'll have to look more into H.H. Holmes. Because that would be a good episode for the True Crime edition. A True Crime episode. Because let's look it up. Was he ever found? If he wasn't, maybe he can be in the cold case edition. Well, he did die in Pennsylvania prison. So I guess he was found, so. I guess he'd be in the solved edition. So yeah, and another subject could be which happens to be another relative of mine. It could be Queen Victoria's grandson, Albert. Because I guess he hanged around those brothels, and he had syphilis, and I guess syphilis is supposed to make you do some mental, make you go mad or something. I actually heard that one for years. Oh, that could have been Albert, Victoria's grandson. That could have been one of the suspects of killing those 5 women. But then I also heard another, that since Jack the Ripper's unidentified, who knows? Jack the Ripper could have been a woman. That could be possible, right? Because we don't know what gender he is. It could have been some woman that had it out for other women. That she went on a murderous rampage. That could have been probably unheard of back in the Victorian era, female killer. And by now, since we're in, in reality, you're in 2025. What? That the case is still unsolved. It could be anybody. And by the sounds of it, most serial killers that have it out for women must have had some traumatic past to do with, usually stems with their mothers. I'm not saying all mothers are bad. There's, my roommate has a lovely relationship with her mom. I had issues with my mom, but I'm not going out killing people. I'm making YouTube videos, so she's dead, so I didn't do anything. It was a heart attack. That's why I hear you hear that a lot of serial killers that go after the prostitutes, or women generally, is because it stems from some traumatic thing that happened to with what their relationship, if they had something bad that happened with their relationship with their mom. I'm just going by a lot of serial killers that I've heard of through history. Which you don't hear of serial killers anymore. It's more involved to mass shootings. But so yeah, Jack the Ripper is an interesting topic, and he's perfect for my cold case edition for when I do get into it for the true crime. I thought to split the true crimes in two, from the solved cases to the cold edition. The cases, because there's some that's never been found, never been caught. Never know. You could, if Jack had got had got picked up with his third kill, maybe by now we could have found out who Jack was and he could have been a solved case. But you never know. Maybe now, since there is a such thing as DNA testing, maybe there's somebody that is like related to this person from the Victorian era going around killing these prostitutes. Maybe eventually 50 years down the road might find out, or even 10, might find out who this guy is. Or maybe this guy that thinks that the Victorian criminal that was in jail at the time, that could be suspicious to be Jack the Ripper. Maybe he's right. If somebody willing to DNA this guy's corpse to get tested, but against the evidence. But then, is the evidence still around? Because we're talking about the Victorian era. It depends on how well it was kept and where it was kept and... Okay. Let's move on from old Jack the Ripper to number 3, and at number 3 is Pea-soupers. I know Pea-soupers sounds like a well interesting rock band from the Victorian era, but that's not what it is. Pea-soupers is an old-fashioned British informal term for a thick, and heavy fog, often with greenish yellow hue. It's known for its dense, visible air pollution, particularly tarry soot and gases like sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. So all that mixed up, it turns into quite of a pea souper. If you imagine pea soup, how thick that is. I wonder if that's where it get the term. It's thicker than pea soup out there. Okay. Yeah, so it'd be probably hard to see what down the street with all that mixed up, and probably dangerous. That'd be dangerous walking down the street, and when you're not, you can't see some like a horse and buggy coming towards you, or talking in close to the turn of the century, like maybe the earliest cars then, like the Model T, coming towards you. You might lose your life going out the door today. And it's not because of Jack the Ripper, it's because you just can't see what's in front of you. That's probably why, if you look up a lot of pictures from the Victorian era and watch a lot of shows or movies, like, let's say, for example, The Christmas Carol. It is looking that dense and foggy and creepy. That you have to be careful. You can see in front of you. So, yeah. Okay, let's move on from Pea-soupers. That would be an awesome rock band name, wouldn't it? Coming up is the Pea-soupers. Okay, let's move on from the Pea-soupers. And if you notice, I'm wearing the necklace and earrings today that I got from To Me today. That was shown on unboxing, the third unboxing video. Found out it's discontinued. Oh well. Probably a reason. Okay, let's move to the fourth one. Yeah, I look pretty in them, don't I? Number 4 is freak shows. Yeah, I know freak today is a very rude term and an unpolitically correct term today. But we're talking about the Victorian era. Everything went back then. It was a weird and wild, crazy era. Freak shows was a type of exhibition from the Victorian era, often associated with circuses, and sideshows. Sideshows. Look at the bearded lady. The man that can lift 1,000 pounds. A mermaid. Sideshow Bob. Probably owns, runs the place. He's probably his ancestor. And my Simpsons fans would recognize the name Sideshow Bob from Simpsons. Okay, back to the script. That features people and animals with unusual physical characteristics or abilities. These displays were once popular forms of entertainment, but are now considered ethically questionable and are largely a thing of the past. Today, if freak shows or sideshows are still around, and circuses did that still today, they'd be shut down. But then, you know what? Circus, there's some scary, I think there's a scary history behind the circus origin of it. So that could be a great episode for this channel. I was thinking even I could probably do an episode on the evolution of the circus. You don't hear of circuses anymore, do you, P? Wonder if they kind of got away during the pandemic, because there's no nowadays with all the technology, since we're in 2025, yeah, we got our technology is advanced where we don't need to go out and see an animal. Like, we can actually go out and see an animal, but not an animal that's being taught to trick and do a trick like this dog. They can. I think so. I think that I heard some circuses are doing away from animal tricks and I think even some like marine world's gone away from that, I think, because of they had issues with they're capped to sea animals. There's no need to have captured wild animals. They're wild animals. Come on, no human would want to be forced to do a trick or enclosed somewhere. Unless you broke the law, then that's a different reason. Otherwise, it's just inhumane. Even it's a good thing they don't do freak shows anymore. They could be human rights activists going after people that do freak shows nowadays or sideshows. And I think I heard most of the circuses gone away from animal acts because of animal activists like PETA and other ones like maybe World Wildlife Fund, maybe, because there's a scary how they some people could treat animals. Okay. So yeah, it was a different time in the Victorian era where I guess freak shows were a popular thing in the Victorian era, and no one questioned it back then. Who's gonna question it? These animal activist organizations didn't exist back then, or human rights activists. It was a different. Victorian era is a different time, totally different time. Anything goes. But eventually, over time, stuff like the freak shows, sideshows, and circuses just evolved, where some of this just stopped. Like most of them, like P.T. Barnum, Barnum Bailey, Ring Brothers. Most of them, it was popular for them to capitalize on animal acts and having sideshows and freak shows, and it was a different time. No one was going to question it. It's just once eventually the years went on, people started questioning, like, opened their eyes and realized this is not right. This shouldn't happen. I think the last circus I had animals was the Shriner Circus, but I was in school. I think Milliers maybe. And I also went to some circus that was South Asian. I'm not sure whether it's Thai, Chinese, or it was from one of the South Asian countries. The circus was from. I did have pictures of it. It's probably somewhere. But I don't think that circus I seen when my family had animal acts. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that would be a great topic. Also, the great topic, the scary history of circuses and the evolution of circus. Maybe we can explore the scary side of zoos, because there's some whack stuff that I've heard about zoos. I've never been to a zoo, but after some stuff I heard, I don't think I want to go to a zoo. Once you force an animal into a size cage, into a small size cage, when they're born into the wild, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the best couple of movies that would show the side of circuses at one time, it would be like Jumbo. You know, the flying elephant. The live action and the actual cartoon. It shows right there the scary abuse of it. Yeah. Okay. Of the circuses at that time. Even if anybody seen that movie, The Last Unicorn? That even takes some stuff that of what went on with sideshows and freak shows and circuses at that time. Oh, okay, let's move on from the freak show to the Gothic novel. And it's at number 5. I do have a Gothic novel from this time. Yeah. And it's in this video. In this number 5. And in a little bit, I'm going to be telling you which one it is. Okay, Gothic novel. A prominent example of a Gothic novel from the Victorian era is one I have is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Yeah, I have Dracula. I was going to read it last year on Halloween because if you notice, every Christmas since I've been doing this channel since 2023, I tried to read something at Christmas, so I thought to do the same thing for Halloween. But I was gonna do read The Raven by one of my favorite authors, Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, I'm a Poe fan. But then I didn't have time. So I was gonna do Dracula. That's too long. You know how many pages are in Dracula? It's pretty thick. Stoker wrote big time. You have big imagination. for an Irishman. So then that's why I ended up settling on reading a children's book. The Halloween version of Goodnight Moon is Goodnight Goon. It's Halloweenish. There's a goon. He's scary. Cute, but scary. I was pushed for time. It was close. It was like after midnight. I was finished handing out candy. But maybe if I have time this year, I will do Dracula. Or Raven. We'll see. But it's how many months away? We're in May. We're almost done May. Okay. Okay, before we move on. Dracula, as I said, Bram Stoker's Irish. Just like me. But I'm more Scottish than Irish. And Ania's rolling her eyes. So yeah, Dracula Bram Stoker's Irish, so to Dracula's origin. The origin story of Dracula is his origin story. He's inspired by Vlad the Impaler. I think, 16th century ruler of Wallachia. Wallachia is in Transylvania, which is in today Romania. And I think remember the first time I ever heard about Dracula was watching some show years ago. Don't ask me which one because I forget. The host was some Linda something, I think. It was kind of a reality show that they had a bunch of people go and stay in these haunted castles. And one of the episodes they went to Dracula's castle. What inspired Bram Stoker to write the novel Dracula is because Bram Stoker he must have heard he must have heard the story of Vlad the Impaler. That Vlad the Impaler did some whack shit to people back then. Like he would impale people different ways on the spikes. Even nailed a couple of guys that used turbans to their head because they refused to take them off because I guess it's part of the religion and it's our tradition to wear that. Vlad wasn't having it. So you can say that Vlad the Impaler is bloodthirsty, but then he had some whack shit. He had some whack father that practically sold him. Not like I'm sympathizing with Vlad the Impaler. It's just what I heard. That actually, you have daddy issues, you drive you crazy. Even if you have mommy issues, I guess. Let's see, that everybody has parent issues goes on a rampage. Yeah, that's what Dracula's origin story, that he's inspired by Vlad the Impaler. And in the book, it actually, the setting is in Romania. There's actually you think one of the Sims has a Vlad on there. Vlad is Strauss. I played him, and he has two. Well, he had two kids till one of them died by sunlight. Why not? They're vampires. I'm having fun. One of them is his daughter on my Sims, is currently ruling Forgotten Hollow. Valerie. Queen Valerie. Co-ruler with her husband. Okay. Yeah, so that's what Dracula's origin story is. I guess Bram had heard about this 16th century ruler in Transylvania, and just ran with it and made Vlad the Impaler into a vampire. In which there's actually, I am going to I'll announce it now that later on, I'm thinking sometime in the future of this channel, I'm going to revisit the Universal Monsters, because if anybody watched, I did the Universal Monsters last year, and I mentioned Dracula, and I will go revisit the Universal Monsters, and they will have their own separate episodes, like Dracula and Frank. It'll all have their own separate episodes, and we're going to dive right in deep and head first into find out all about the hysteria of vampires and the origin story, and each of them, and what drove people mad of like mummies and all that. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to revisit different episodes again to give new insights. Okay. Let's move on. Other notable works include Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Frankenstein was built up by Frankenstein is actually not the name of the monster. Frankenstein is the doctor. And funny enough, Dr. Frankenstein was, if anybody watched Once Upon a Time, Dr. Frankenstein is shown in Once Upon a Time. Oh, or did he become a Disney character? Did somehow Disney pick up the rights for Mary Shelley's work? Or get Paramount's permission? Yeah, he plays a doctor that works on the staff in Storytime's hospital. Felt like kind of weird. Okay, the monster in the story, Mary Shelley's story, Frankenstein, the monster is made up of different human body parts. And I think it's based on the practice in the Victorian era, which is actually not mentioned, I don't think, in this episode, that about grave robbing, that they used to pick up and sell dig Gladys's body up and out of the ground and sell her for a couple of bucks. So that's probably what Dr. Frankenstein was doing, grave robbing. And not only for somebody's jewels. Just to get the body. So he can try to play God and create life. That's why when the monster is all the way up here and the lightning strikes, the monster that starts moving, Dr. Frankenstein says, "He's alive!" Okay. Okay, well, I'll be right back. I need us looking at, like, I need to feed her. I better. Are you getting hungry again?
Yeah, I was gonna post it I don't know what time.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, we left off where we're talking about Frankenstein. Yeah, so Frankenstein is made up of different bodies because, yeah, Dr. Frankenstein grave dropped, and I think with the help of his sidekick Eagle, or in the Universal Monsters, Igor's also pronounced as Igor. I guess it depends on which movies. So I guess him in Igor, or grave robbing, and stole a bunch of bodies, or got some bodies sold to him, and voila, they got a creation. I think it was a little different with the Bride of Frankenstein. I think they murdered a woman, and made the Bride of Frankenstein. It probably explains why when she's seeing her new husband, she screamed, "Ah!" After I got whacked and I came back to life and I seen who I would have married, I would scream, one, the fact that some idiot took my life. Be more than be screaming, be some lights knocked out. And plus I was screaming if I found out that, well, my husband I'm married to more than one person now. Okay. Yeah, okay. I heard the reason why Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, came up with the story of Frankenstein was because her and a bunch of her friends were sitting around somewhere. I think it was a cafe or a Victorian cafe or somewhere. And they were telling ghost stories like it was the norm back then. Which that's going to be mentioned in a little bit. And so when it got to Mary's turn, Mary Shelley came up with the story of Frankenstein, of this guy being this poor monster being created with different body parts and put together and scaring the piss out of the townspeople, and they running after them with pitchforks and fiery object things I can't think of. And yelling, "Monster! Monster! Kill the monster!" Now, if this was said in the 50s, his bride would be welcoming them to sit down with a feast and calming them down. No, my husband's not a monster. He could be a monster in the sack, but he's not a monster. He's a lovely guy. He's an accountant. Meanwhile, we have our 3 little kids. They did have the son of the Frankenstein. Dracula has his own kids. Okay, and then the next book was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I never read Wuthering Heights. Probably never heard of it till today. Actually, till I wrote this. So I don't know what Wuthering Heights is about. Actually, let's look it up. Wuthering Heights. Okay, this is from Wikipedia. I know some people don't trust Wikipedia, but okay. Wuthering Heights is the only novel by the English author Emily Bronte, additionally published in 1847 under her pen name alias Bell. A lot of women back then, and still today, they go by a male nickname because publish under a male name because some publishers won't publish your own name. If I went by my initials publishing a book, it would have to be R.S. Davis. This stands for Rebecca Sue. I don't like my middle name. Okay, here's from study.com. Wuthering Heights is a graphic novel by several toxic relationship between Catherine and Heathcliff. Heathcliff came from an unknown circumstance and was abused and ostracized by nearly everyone. Heathcliff and Cathy loved each other deeply, but could not be with him. Aww. Well, sounds like such a romantic story, doesn't it? The two couple can't be with each other for circumstance. It reminds you of Romeo and Juliet. Minus the whole teen Whoopi and the teen doing their self in. Which I still say that it's not that hard to check the pulse before you do yourself in. If she's just napping, don't do it. But that Wuthering Heights sounds like such a romantic book. I'm gonna have to look it up and read it. Anita, doesn't this sound like a romantic book? Oh. Yeah. Kudos for Emily Bronte to write such a romantic book for that time frame. Okay. And the last book, besides a romantic Gothic novel, a Catherine Heathcliff. The last one is The Strange Case of Jekyll and Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde I mentioned in my Universal Monsters episode from season 1. Because we only have 2 seasons so far. Yeah, but I didn't show the pictures because I was still learning how to put that in and learn. I'm still learning different aspects, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is very interesting. Dr. Jekyll, I think I'll tell you the little backstory. I'll pick it up. Okay, this is from IA Overview. The same one that from last episode somehow got George Mitchell. Who's George Mitchell? Okay. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a novella by Robert Louis Stevenson about a man who experiments with a potion that allows him to transform into a strange and evil personality named Mr. Hyde. The story explores themes of good and evil, indwelling of human nature, and the dangers of suppressing one's darker impulse. So let's see, he made a potion and he drank it, and voila, he turned into Hyde. Undrained mental case that no one would want to date. And that's been also, that's one of the Universal monsters that has been done over and over, adapted a million, tons of times over and over again. It's even pictated in Ellen Chipmunks Meets Frankenstein, because the Chipmunks are doing a play where Theodore, Stashy down, Theodore where Theodore plays Hyde, and Simon is Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll, and wait, no, that's I'm wrong. That's the wrong Ellen. That's when Ellen and the Chipmunks meets. That was in Ellen and the Chipmunks meets the Wolfman. How? Yeah. What are you doing? Oh. Excuse me. Thanks, P. And just sits down. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm wrong. It was in Ellen and the Chipmunks Meets the Wolfman. No. Yeah, I got them mixed up because it's so many. Have you, anybody? Yeah. Yeah, that play was in Ellen and the Chipmunks Meets the Wolfman. Okay, I think I mentioned it in the Universal Monsters episode from last season, that Universal Munsters, you remember the Munsters from the 60s? I don't know where you put them. No one knew. The Universal monsters are made up by the monsters are made up by most of the Universal monsters. Like Herman Monster is Frankenstein's monster. I wonder if his musician is Dr. Frankenstein. So to say. I wonder if Dr. Frankenstein still does house calls. Herman's wife, Lily, is Dracula's daughter. So yeah, Grandpa is Dracula, Count Dracula. Well, actually, Lily's one of Count Dracula's daughters. Because you remember, there's one of them, Lily's sister, is actually mentioned in my episode, The Universal Monsters. And their son, Eddie, is half monster and half vampire. So he's a mixture. The only one of those that four trio is their niece, Marilyn. She's mortal. Somehow, she's related, if I remember. Marilyn's on Lily's side. So Marilyn is Count Dracula's granddaughter. somehow Marilyn didn't get the vampire DNA kicked in. Her father must have been mortal. What? Could that be possible in here? I'll help you in a bit. Okay, and there's there's a episode we have on, which I showed, if you've seen my Halloween movies, and she figured out where to put the timer on. Okay. If you've seen my Halloween movies episode from last season, I showed all of the Halloween movies we have. And it shows that we have a movie set of some of the episodes of the monsters. If there's not enough, we can have vegetables. Okay, I'm bad. Sorry, I got distracted. Okay, in the Halloween episode, you would know that, we have a movie that has some of the monsters episodes from that show from the 60s. That, there's an episode in there that the monsters celebrate Halloween, and it has all their family. Like, they have a witch for a relative, they have the Phantom of the Opera, well, it's not every, they didn't have the Invisible Man, so, yeah. So, yeah. They say that the Universal Monster started way back at all the Universal Monsters mainly dated back, most of them dated back all the way back to the Victorian era because of the Gothic novels. And yeah, you can tell I'm wearing black nails. Now, mostly my look today is mostly mixed between late Victorian and early Victorian. Honor of each part of my 12th-time cousin, Queen Victoria's reign. Okay, let's move on from, actually first, to my viewers, I would advise you to check out these Gothic novels from the Victorian era, and you can find probably more of them there. That was just an example of some of them. I didn't find every novel from the Victorian era. Didn't crack through the Victorian library. I'm gonna have to take a look at that, read that Wuthering Heights. This is so romantic. If I read it, maybe I'll do Now maybe on this channel I can do a review on the Wuthering Heights. So you know if I liked Wuthering Heights, or maybe I thought maybe it's not so romantic after all. We'll find out. It's not so romantic. So sad that Heathcliff and Catherine couldn't be together. This sucks. Okay, let's move on from the Gothic Novel to number 6 is hair jewelry. Okay, hair jewelry is not what you think what it is today. It is a totally different thing in the Victorian era. It's very something I wouldn't want to do. I don't mind dulling my own hair up. Because my own hair, I'm alive. Okay. This is the reason why I find the Victorian hair jewelry is would weird me out. Hair jewelry from the Victorian era was a popular form of mourning and sentimental keepsake during the Victorian era, featuring jewelry crafted from human hair. Yeah. Ew. These phone would stay for a minute, we could finish. These pieces were often created to commemorate deceased loved ones. Sorry, the sun's clear there. These loved ones, especially after their death, could be interrogated or sampled. Yeah, no, yeah, that's too much. Fine with the death photography. What are you supposed to do after you take the snapshot of the lovely couple and their family that just died? It's time to give them a trim haircut. Yeah, no. At least funeral parlors don't offer that anymore. Well, by the way, before we shove Grandpa in the pine box, we'll give him a haircut. That's too weird. Right, B? Yeah. I'm gonna be right back. Okay. Yeah. That hair thing is a little weird. But I guess it was a different time then. Yeah. Okay, that was not... There. Perfect. Sorry, I was just trying to not have the glare of the sun in this video, so you could see me. Okay. Yeah, the hair to this jewelry is too weird, but I guess it was a popular thing in the Victorian era, where It was fine. So, okay, let's move on from the hair jewelry. Like real life hair they would do. To something more settling and scary. And is at number 7. Surgery is not what you're thinking like today. It's more disgusting. Surgery from the Victorian era was brutal and dangerous. Danger experience. Patients underwent operations without anesthesia. And operating rooms were often dirty. Yeah, they weren't clean. With surgeons wearing blood-soaked aprons. Like they went from one surgery to another surgery to another surgery to another surgery without cleaning themselves or the operating room or changing the aprons. And it's like, no, we're gonna just do it without bothering cleaning, sanitizing ourselves. Post-operative infections were ramped up, so it'd be risky when you're out on the recovery room, leading to high mortality rates. So while you're recovering in the recovery room, you could die because the idiot surgeon back then didn't even sanitize himself and clean up and clean the surgery room to make sure you wouldn't leave this world. With some surgeons surgeries even resulting in 300% mortality rate in certain cases. Isn't that mind-blowing? How ridiculous that was back then. That it would be scary to go for that surgery if you had to need your appendix removed. That would be scary. At least I know today you can still die from surgery. It does still happen, but at least today, in the era we live in, at least surgery rooms are clean. The surgeons clean their cells and scrub up before every surgery and clean their, make sure there's no infection gonna happen. But shit still does happen. If I had to go through surgery, like I had to go through surgery 10 years ago on my right elbow because of my last seizure I had. It took everything out. Did a number. That's why I have metal in there. It would be risky in the more risky in the Victorian era if I had to get this right elbow fixed. I could have died. If I was there in the Victorian era, I would have probably died in the recovery room. Because it was risky back then to be operated on. Are you trying to wash the veggies?
I'm just waiting on the veggies.
Okay. So yeah, it was risky back then to get some a little thing from your elbow fixed or your gallbladder done. So you could have been, if you had surgery in the Victorian era, you could have been meeting your maker while you're in the recovery room. Just because how unsanitary the surgery room and the surgeons were. Not like I'm saying that surgeries are, you come out fine from surgery. There is still some risk today, but not as much risk as it was in the Victorian era. There's more high risk than it is today. Because as we all know, the surgeons know better about risks, about infections, but then they do have, or I remember when I had my surgery on this elbow, after I got out of the surgery, they gave me some medication, some drug to prevent any infection, just in case there was a little bit of infection. But then there was no the drug that they gave me 10 years ago, that didn't exist in the Victorian era. Once you're in recovery room, it's a 50-50 chance. Are you going to bite the dust, or are you going to be here to live another day? And plus, it's a 50-50 chance. Do you take the surgery, or would you rather not? Either way, you're probably going to bite the dust if you don't take the surgery. Right, Pete? That's in the Victorian era. No, yeah. So, now surgeries are a lot more deadly in the Victorian era. A lot more scary. Okay, let's move on from scary surgeries. Surgeries from the Victorian era to number 8. And number 8 I can get behind, which is the Victorian obsession of the occult. And I can get behind because I believe in the afterlife. I believe there's ghosts and spirits, and something bumps in the night, goes bumps in the night. It keeps you on the toes. It keeps you on the toes. The Victorian obsession with the occult stemmed from a period of significant social and intelligent upheaval, and coupled with growing sense of supernatural in popular culture. This faction infestation in various forms include supernaturalism, ghost stories, magic shows. Ta-da! Here's the rabbit. And the rise of occult societies. That was a big thing back then. Occult societies. They got full blown into the seances. But there's but then there's some seances that some people later found out that they were faked. But not all cults are like that. Some that were trying to talk to the dead, and I have a big book on ghost stories. I think it was the author's Brad something. It shows that there was even a society here in Canada, a cult society that had the whole manifestation of spirits on film. Okay, and several factors corroborate into this interest, including questioning of traditional beliefs. That's still today, a lot of people question the whole religious beliefs and antics about death, and the afterlife, and desire of all to know explanations of the unknown. So I guess with the questioning of the beliefs back then, they were trying to get more answers to is there a life beyond this realm? Is there a spiritual realm? And a lot of cults try to answer that by doing seances. I think, wasn't the Ouija board? Let's look it up. There's another idea. Maybe we could do scary origins of the board games. Ouija board. Here did it come out? Let's try the Ouija board. Okay, it did come out. Around this time, in the Victorian era. So it says the Ouija board became that board game. Ouija was born in 1886. Okay, it was in 1886. Chester Town, Maryland, and named in 1890 in Baltimore, Maryland, where the first manufactured. So the Ouija board is another thing that was trying to contact the dead, but I hear there's some scary stuff that comes out of that. So maybe sometime we could talk about scary origins of board games. My grandparents played with the board game. They went through a lot because there was some unsettling stuff that they heard through the dead. You look at it. So if you're okay, FYI, if anybody wants to play with a Ouija board, be careful. Because otherwise, if you're supposed to, what you're supposed to do is, once you're done playing with the Ouija board, you're supposed to finish up and close the door between the afterlife and here. Or otherwise, you're going to have Lucifer as your roommate. If you don't. Because I've heard mainly you have to be careful that it might not only be, it might be your grandparents trying to talk to you, or Marilyn Monroe. Because some people try to use the Ouija board to talk to Marilyn. It's like, Marilyn, did you really kill yourself? That could be some demon on the other side telling you, oh yeah. So, FYI, be responsible playing with the Ouija board. Yeah, close the door between us and the afterlife. Unless you want a 5,000-year-old demon living with you. So, just be careful. Like, I wouldn't play with the Ouija board myself, because my grandma told me some bad juju about their experience. But then I watched a few paranormal stuff, and I learned that it could not be the person on the other end of in the afterlife. It could be some guy hanging, some demon from the afterlife. Huh? Okay, well, let's move on from the Victorian obsession with the occult, which is to say I could get by. Well, I have a ghost story. Who doesn't? The haunted house that everybody, the story about the haunted house that everybody thinks is haunted. And we got actually, I think, a few haunted houses in Hartney, don't we? Right? Yeah.
That lady must be Ruby candidate's name.
No. Okay. We'll move on from the occult to number 9, which is vagaries. That is Vignettes. In the Victorian era, vagaries could refer to different things like short literature sketched, a form of entertainment called a tableau, a variant, or even a decorative illustration. They're all popular in this era, in this period, and captured a sense of moment. Because the Victorian upper class, later middle class, had no television. Remember, TV didn't exist in the 18th century, in the early 19th century. It wasn't existed yet. So there was no TV show with the Victorian mom or Victorian dad, Victorian family. No, it didn't exist. To entertain them. So they had to find something else to entertain them. So they entertained themselves. One of the popular forms of entertainment was for friends and family to dress up in outrageous costumes and pose for each other. This sounds innocent, but just think you can imagine your grandmother dressing you as a Greek wood nymph posing on a table in the living room while everyone applauds. That's a wonderful Greek nymph. No, you can't. No, you can't. I can't. My grandma did. All of them. The idea is in fact creepy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on this episode. But for Victorians, this was perfectly normal and fun. Because you think of it, as I said, there wasn't no such thing as TV yet. Because the TV hadn't come out. I'll tell you one. Let's look at it. And okay, the first TV didn't come out until March 25th, 1925. I'm very uneducated. I thought it came out in the 50s. But obviously it came out in March 25th, 1925. It says, this is IA overview. Television as a consumer product became available in crude example forms in 1920s. So remember, it was the first public display moving visible television was on March 25th, 1925. So actually another one says actually from probably an accurate one. The first television system broadcast was straight lined by Paleo Farnsworth on September 7th, 1927. So let's see. How many years? 27, take away. $37. So the TV wouldn't have been around till 90 years later. So that's why they had to, the Victorians had to come up with something to entertain themselves instead of being so boring. For that era. So yeah. Okay. Let's move on from the Bear Greats to number 10. To child labor. Yes, this was a big thing back then. It would be a no-no today. So, During the Victorian era, child labor was widespread, often brutal. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be on the script, would it? Children, sometimes as young as 4 years old, for God's sakes, were employed in factories, mines, farm, and in homes as servants. Children would be working long hours in hazardous conditions. They face the risk of serious injuries or even death, and were often subjugated to abusive treatment. Because no one gave a crap about kids like in the Victorian era. It was more or less they had to push out their inventory on time, or the farmers to get the farm work done, or the people in the house to get stuff done. Okay, if you remember from season 1, I did the Christmas. Now you see me. I did the Christmas movies. That was the first episode of season 1. So season 1, episode 1. I talked about the Christmas movies we need to have. And in there's a movie called, in our collection, called Mrs. Claus, played by, if anybody that's a fan of Murder, She Wrote, the lady that played Jessica Fletcher, Angela Lansbury, played Mrs. Claus in there. And that show, that Mrs. Claus, is actually dated around, I think, in the Victorian era, I think. Yeah. And it shows in there that of the children children labor. They were forced to go out and work. We would now, I know there's still some places but that would be called a different name nowadays if existed. It was a different time. No one gives a crap about the kids. They needed, the families were, these were lower class families we're talking about. Not the upper, is echelon. Like the middle class. The middle class families had to struggle to get a little bit of ends meet. So it shows in, a good example is, there's an episode, of anybody watched or heard of Horrible Histories. Is a British a British children's program. It's very funny and interesting way to pictate how history went. And it shows how the history of child labor. That it was a way for families to get some money coming in by sending Timmy and Sally and Tommy and Johnny off to work. And there was, if I remember in the Mrs. Claus movie, the last time we seen it was Christmas, unless how many months ago, that it shows that the people that were working for them were very abusive. Like, example is the guy that runs the toy store in Mrs. Claus. He makes very crappy toys because they fall apart before Christmas. Because the guy didn't care. He's worried. He's more wanting the money. More or less he had a vendetta. We don't Santa Claus. Anyway, it says, made a good example is the owner of the toy store in Mrs. Claus made the toys factory cold, because he thought if he made the factory cold, his workers work faster, and he wouldn't pay very well. So I wonder if this was, it could have been, this was before somebody stepped in and stopped the child labor and put this was way before child labor laws came in to existence. Nowadays somebody would get their ass in trouble for forcing a kid out to work, when there is such thing as child labor laws nowadays. Okay. So Horrible History says it's pretty good to show that the environment of the time, just with a song, and a cute, adorable rat is host. And the little rat tells a little bit of the time, and a little bit of, there's little cartoons that tells what the time was like. It was a terrible time to be living in when you were a child. Because you'd be forced off to work at the age, young as the age of 4, as they said. You wouldn't have a childhood. You would have to go and earn a paycheck. Because mom and dad are not bringing anything, so you need to help help out, because mom and dad are not bringing in enough. Okay, let's move on from the child labor. Thank God there's child labor laws today. To number 11, poorhouse. Okay, I think I might have to pause. Sorry for some of my viewers, but it's time for me to go eat. I will be back, so we're gonna leave off with a poorhouse. Okay. Okay, I'm back. We left off with poorhouse. Okay, let's do it this way. That's okay.
You can shut this door later.
Yes. Okay. Poorhouse. At the number 11. In the Victorian era, a poorhouse, also known as a workhouse, was a government-run institution designed to provide shelter and work for these unable to support themselves financially. These facilities aim to elevate proper mesh and provide a controlled environment for the poor, often with strict rules and minimal contributions. I think it's... Oh, hold on. Okay, sorry, Anita had to show me something. Personal. Okay. It's the... back to the poorhouse. It was, since it is also known as workhouse. Okay, in the... Sorry to glare of the sun, but... Not much I could do about the sun. Okay, the workhouse, since it's another name for poorhouse. This was mentioned in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. There's a line that Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, the guy that always says, "Bah, humbug."
I already
there's a scene in the movie A Christmas Carol. Which The Christmas Carol is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Okay, in the scene of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, there, what would you like to get there? Are you trying to get to this? Oh.
Hi.
That's Anita. No, the host of Just Anita. Okay, anyways, back to the Christmas Carol. There's a line that when in a scene of the Christmas Carol, in the movie that the Christmas Carol, that Ebenezer Scrooge is saying to these people that are collecting for the poor, and he says, why can't the poor go to these workhouses? And one of the guys collecting for the poor says some of the poor would rather die than go to the to the workhouses. a choice, is a kind of a question. If you're that in the time of the Victorian era, are you that well off that not well off that you have a choice whether to go to the workhouse, or would you rather die? Because as it says that there were often strict rules in manual requirements, occupants. So I guess not a lot of places, not a lot of food, not a lot of places to sleep, maybe to bathe. It was a rough time for the poor, for the middle class, in the Victorian era, where these type of places were set up. That if you're that distraught, you would have to maybe make a decision to just go there. And sometimes I think I remember seeing it was in Flintstone's Christmas Carol. They did the play of the Christmas Carol, and one little boy was carted off, and almost dragged to the workhouse as punishment for just throwing a snowball and destroying Ebenezer Scrooge's hat. Yes, maybe that they probably, if they got in trouble, you probably got sent to the workhouse. I guess it was almost like being dragged off to jail. And plus there's probably other eras of history that's probably worse things that had been done. But it was a hard time, I guess, back in the Victorian era for the middle class. For the poor, and it must have been, I guess this must have been before the invention of fair wages, working for so much an hour, like $15 an hour. It's a whole different ball game back in the Victorian era. That were in. And the next one we're gonna move on to is not even better. So we'll move on from the poorhouse. Hopefully you still see me with the glare of the sun. Sorry, sun's like practically going. It's like glaring, so we'll move on from the poorhouse to number 12, and number 12 is food. Now, in the Victorian era, food was really different. between the classes. Between the middle class and the higher class. The upper class. The upper echelons. Oh. Okay. Hopefully you can still see me, though. You know, I'm trying to block out the sun, but it's hard. Okay. The Victorian era varied greatly depend on wealth. But some popular and readily available foods include meat. In brackets, there was beef, mutton. If anybody doesn't know what mutton is a Scottish food. Actually, I'm thinking of something else. Sorry. Mutton, pork, and bacon. What is mutton? Okay. Mutton is meat of mature adult sheep, typically between one of... Okay, this is a... The overview says lamb and mutton, collectively sheep meat, is one of the most common meats around the world, taken from domesticated shapes, oviparous aries, gently divided into lamb from sheep in their first year. Hog-dicked from sheep in the second, and mutton from the older sheep. So it's sheep. Okay. Let's continue with the food. Cheese, eggs, bread, potatoes, rice, oatmeal. Oatmeal's good to keep you regular because I found this out on Outlander. They were over in France, and Pictet met up with one of the French kings. They won all the Louis. He was having some issues. Okay. She suggested oatmeal. Okay. And milk, seasonal vegetables, flour, sugar, testicles. Really? Testicles. Jam and tea. But did you know oatmeal? I learned on Outlander, the TV show. One time, oatmeal was considered to be a peasant's food. So, like my ancestors wouldn't even touch that stuff. Because they thought it was a peasant's food. That's why I think when the Louis were shocked, like, that's a peasant's food. I'm not eating that. And it's like, Your Majesty, unless you want to be constipated for the rest of your days, I think you might want to eat it. Okay, some dishes included vegetable stew, porridge, even street food like fried fish, roasted chestnuts and hazelnuts. Richer Victorians might have enjoyed more eligibilate meats with fish, wild game, poultry puddings, ices, ICES, not the other thing, pastries, you wonder why some of the royals had bowel issues back then. While poor families relied more on bread and porridge and potatoes, because, as I said, the poor people back then didn't have a whole lot of money coming in to buy the stuff the royals and the nobility of the Victorian era could eat. They probably wish they could. They weren't bringing and pulling down $1 million paychecks. They were living paycheck to paycheck. They had to do what they had to do with what they had to. Then, even if it's all 3 meals, they had to eat bread, porridge, and potatoes. Which, did you know that a little fact about potatoes? Which is another episode, The Scary History of Potatoes. Potato famine. Okay. Some royals back then, even nobility, thought that potatoes were peasants' food. So a lot of food we eat today, some royals, I'm not bashing my ancestors, by the way, just thought that certain foods were more commonly would have been eaten by peasants, like one of the Louis from Outlander thought that Claire on that show was nuts for suggesting me eat oatmeal to move my bowels along. How dare she? I think I'm related to that Louis. I forget which. I think it might have been the Sun King. Thought that oatmeal is a peasant's food. I guess maybe in France it was more commonly eaten maybe among French peasants. But then we all know that later on, like his grandson ended up brutally. What the world? Yeah, that was. I'm talking about Victorian food over here, and peasants, and some idiot who is honking his horn. Okay, let's get back to Victorian food. Yeah, so I guess it must looked very snobbish of him, thinking that the French king at the time must have thought that in the series. I'm not sure how he would have acted in reality, but that it was very snobbish, thinking that oatmeal? Really, oatmeal? It has solved my bowel issues? How dare he? She mentioned that. That's how, though, after I watched that episode, it's like, oh. That's interesting to know. Oatmeal helps to keep you regular. And obviously, since it was a good food in the Victorian era to eat, most Victorians knew what they were doing about food. We try to keep oatmeal in our house. Must be something in the oats that keeps making sure that you are regular. There's a lot of things like prunes and there's a lot of fruit, a lot of foods that can help you make sure you're still going the bowel through them regularly. You know, having constipation. That wouldn't feel comfy. Okay, let's move on. I'm gonna have to charge my phone. Okay, we're almost done. We're on the second to last. So let's move on from Victorian food to number 13, and it is Memento Mori. It sounds like an opera from the Victorian era. In the Victorian era, Memento Mori is a meaning for remembering your best die. Was a prominent theme in practice, particularly in mourning and art. It involved creating remembers of mortality through various means, including photograph, jewelry, and paintings. So that includes, I guess, is including the death photography we talked about. You remember that early this video? The death photography, getting grandma and grandpa and have your dead relatives up there and take a snapshot. The hair jewelry we talked about. After the death photography, you give your dead loved ones a haircut, and you're stuck with their jewelry for almost the end of your time. And paintings, you paint them. You think hopefully before they die. But it's a great way to keep them around forever and ever. I guess a little better than keep them under your bed. My stepdad told me a story about a lady. He knew that. I think he said First Nations lady, or Indian. She used to keep her husband dead body under the bed, but I guess that's a little better than doing that. So yeah, so it's including the death photography, the hair jewelry, and the paintings. So I wonder if they did that after. Wonder if all this stopped after Victoria died. Because as I said, her reign ended in 1901 when she died. And then her son Edward became king, and it picked up with the Edwardian era. So it'd be the 7th Edwardian era, because remember we have a total of 8 Edwards. So yeah. Be a totally different things from that one. Yeah, so yeah. I guess it might be also different things that also include that. I guess it was a popular way to honor that person, the dead person. We're talking about they're dead, they died, they're gone, they're out of this world. So, yeah. That was a freaky time in the Victorian era. Yeah. Well, let's move on from Memento Mori. And sorry, it's not an opera. I've thought it does sound like a great title for an opera. Okay. Let's go to the final one. At number 14 is my 12th time cousin, Queen Victoria. Yeah. After Albert died, she got a little, scary. And let's see why she got scary after Albert died. I bet you knew she had to be on here somehow, since it is her era. Okay, let's see why my 12th time cousin Victoria became scary. Queen Victoria has to have position number 14 on this list because the era is named for her. And frankly, she became bloody creepy after her husband Albert's death on December 14th, 1861. I heard it was after they've had a little fight over their son Edward. And that's when she went into deep mourning. Really, really deep. She got all black and sport that. By donning black frocks until her own death on January 22nd, 1901. I had to double check my family tree on the date. She is my, as I say, she is my 12th time cousin. And expecting her nation to do so, too. Yeah, she's the only woman that in history probably made her whole nation that she was ruling in to sport black. But she does look stunning in it. But she made the whole nation look fucking creepy. Yeah. At least all in the history of it, I never heard of any other woman force the whole nation into deep mourning. Maybe 9 to 10 days is good enough. Yeah, otherwise, to do so too. She avoided public appearances and rarely set foot in London in the following years. Yeah. Her exclusive earned her name Widow of Windsor. So yes, I think I heard why the name is because Victoria, my 12th time cousin, just stayed in Windsor Castle. And just, like, didn't go it's just, like, go back to Buckingham Palace. She just stayed in Windsor Castle. And it was like, yeah, I'm not going back to London. Yeah. I wonder if it was Windsor Castle where her and Albert were fighting when he died. I think she blamed her son. Okay. Her sunburned rain cast a dark pale across Britain, and her influence was so great that the entire period was fraught with creepiness and irony, since Victoria disliked black funerals. Like she explained. Some people think, what, black funerals? The race of black? No, that's not what it is. She didn't want people at her funeral wearing black. It was enough they had to wear it day to day. You don't need to show up wearing one. That's what it is. So much London was festooned in purple and white when she died. So when she died, instead of wearing black to her funeral, everybody showed up in purple and white. Because she didn't like everybody showing up in black. Which, you think of it, black is the traditional. Black colors for funerals are technically something you mostly see at funerals. So she probably seen it enough growing up. And in that time, practically half of her citizens in her kingdom are like dropping dead like one after another. So she probably is like, yeah, no, let's just not do that. Yeah. She was a beautiful woman at one time. I've seen a lot of pictures of her. She was very beautiful, but then she had a frightening childhood bringing up with. She has mommy issues herself. That could be another episode tidily of Victoria. Yeah. So, yeah. Shmerla she was totally in love with Albert, so that's probably why she went in deep, deep mourning for Albert. So as I said, they did have a fight over Edward, their son. Everybody knows Edward, as his nickname is, Birdie. He was a playboy prince. And that, I think that's why with all these antics, they were always fighting over Albert and over Edward. I mean, and the day Albert died, that was what they were doing, was fighting over Edward. Yeah, if she let her daughter become queen, we could have had a Queen Victoria II. History would have changed forever. Okay. So yeah, that's the main reason why she had gone into deep mourning mode was because they were her husband / I think cousin, they were he had died after they were fighting. So I wonder if she kind of blamed herself because of the fighting, but I wonder if I think I heard once she did accuse her son Edward, her heir, of somehow pushing his father to the grave. Because it was quite stressful. Because there's a lot of pressures to be an heir. But with Edward had been, since he's known as the Playboy Prince, which that name's been used a lot through English history. He was expected to settle down and have kids, and with him had different affairs with different women, and he kept on going after he married his wife Alexandria of Denmark. She kind of looked the other way. So I think she went blind anyway. So, if I'm right, I think Victoria's the only woman queen in history that got all her nation to wear black for the rest of the reign. Because she did wear her beautiful dresses. in the start of her reign. Most of her dresses were stemmed from, the early dresses were stemmed from the Regency era. But then there's some stuff that she grew up seeing. So, but yeah, I think it was why she went into the deep mourning mode was because I think she kind of blamed herself for always fighting with her husband about the same damn thing was her son Edward. But then later years she did her start losing her figure. She started gaining weight as she got older. I wonder if she was depressed. Must have been not depressed because she did have a little fling with Mr. Brown, the Scotsman, and got a little obsessed with the guy from India. Maybe somehow she was trying to move past, but move on. But so it's not bad. Didn't look bad in black, but sometimes I guess she didn't want to give it up. So she wasn't. I know she was in love. In love with Albert. What I seen in videos, like in documentaries about her. When I read that she was definitely in love with him. I guess me and her have something in common as cousins. I heard that she has had quite a temper. It must run in the family. I have quite a temper too. Only if I'm pushed to yell. But, yeah. It was a shame that she was, like, forced her whole nation into mourning for the rest of the Victorian era. That's why the Victorian era turned into being creepy. Because of my 12th time cousin, Victoria. Not saying that she was a bad woman. She was probably a wonderful woman. I don't know. Oh, yeah, she probably was. How would I know? I wasn't even born in the 18th century. This is what I seen. Nothing bad I seen of her. It's just it's sad how she got her whole nation to mourn with her. You almost have to question what's going in her psyche. I almost wonder if she was depressed. Questioning, maybe I shouldn't have fought with him for the last time. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe I should have just let birdie be birdie. I know there's a movie that I seen years ago when I lived at the other house, about when she had those guys came over from India for this banquet thing. When they went to the Osborne house on one of the islands adjacent to England, her son Bertie said, "Enough is enough, Mom." But then her son Edward's a question there too. Let's see what he did after she died. You know, I think maybe she was depressed, but not enough to do herself in. Just depressed where she might have been questioning, maybe I should have just left it alone, maybe I shouldn't have fought with him. That's my thought. That's my thought of my 12-time cousin. That maybe she was depressed, but found some way to, maybe that was her way to cope her depression of losing her husband. Because of the whole fighting over their son Edward. But you think of it, history could have played out different if her daughter had reigned after she did. Because I seen something about an alternate history thing about her daughter could have, instead of her son, and could have, if she went the other way, she could have went for absolute primogeniture, where it didn't matter which gender it was, whether it was the boy or the girl. I am thinking of sometime doing an alternate history episode. I thought of it way before I started making videos for this channel, Weird, Scary, and Interesting, because there's different outcomes to different points of history, and that there's Victoria could have had, instead of her having her son as her playboy son, as her heir, could have, if she went absolute primogeniture, maybe she could have had her daughter Victoria as her heir, and we could have had Queen Victoria II, but then we would have had a lot of German monarchs. I'm not saying that we didn't. Look at the Georgians. Two of them, the first guy, King George the First, did come from Germany. But that alternate history does fascinate me, because history could have went another way if it was just changed just slightly. especially if one of Victoria's uncles had an illegitimate daughter, like her Uncle George the Fourth, his illegitimate daughter Charlotte. If she lived, we wouldn't have had a Victorian era. We would have had maybe a Charlottine era. And then we would have been ruled by Dutch. No, Belgium! Because her husband's the first, it was the guy that started out Belgium's monarchy. Should know that. I figured it out when I was doing my family tree. So yeah. So that's why I think that maybe Victoria, Queen Victoria, could have been depressed. Maybe that's why she wore black for the rest of her life, and she got the whole nation. Plus, it might have explained a lot of things. I think she might have been obsessed too. So I'm a little depressed on the side of obsession. With a little side of loneliness. Well, if you like this video, if you found this video very scary, if you did, you know the drill. Like and subscribe and comment, and I'd like you to tell me what you thought about the scary things of the Victorian era. And if you found this very fascinating. And please, I'm gonna warn you now. Please put educated comments on the comment section, please. I'm not tolerating uneducated comments, please. I don't got time for that. And please keep it decent and nice. I don't need a war in my comment section. And like and subscribe and comment and ring the bell. And if you enjoyed this, maybe next time I'm thinking to look at different eras that had scary topics. It won't be the only country I might do. Later on in the future, I'll look at different kingdoms that had different shit, the scary shit that went down. Okay. So, have a good night, and I'll see you next week. And be nice in the comment sections, please. So, for now, I will say goodbye. Bye.